Translator, Ninetales, Editor, Dark Gem. This place is not Ghost Valley. Fu Yuchen swept his gaze across the surroundings, his bat-like eyes glimmering faintly in the dim ruin. The two white bats felt somewhat restrained, for this was their first time leaving Ghost Valley. Their instincts urged them to hang upside down as they always had, yet an unfamiliar shyness gripped their hearts, preventing them from doing so. Qin Mu lifted his head and examined the crumbling hall and broken roof above them before speaking calmly. You two may hang from the rafters and rest. Do not startle the others. Tomorrow, when we reach Ghost Valley, I will bring you back and give you the antidote. The two white bats immediately breathed sighs of relief. Their wings stirred silently as they rose into the air. With soft movements, they hung beneath the roof beams, folding their hands across their chests as they dangled there. Fu Yuchen slowly opened his eyes and whispered in a low voice, "That brat deceived us. We were never poisoned." Fu Yuchi was stunned. We were not poisoned? Impossible. When the toxin erupted earlier, we were clearly racked with pain. Fu Yuchen rolled one eye lazily. The poison must have been dispelled long ago. When he first handed us the antidote, he had likely already neutralized it. The rest was merely to frighten us. Otherwise, after more than 2 months, the toxin would have already claimed our lives. Fu Yuchu became furious. That brat tricked us into working for him. Let's roast him well and eat him. Oh well, Fu Yuchen replied. Even if we had not allied with him, Pangong So and his lackeys would still have hunted us down. They would never have spared us. By joining forces with the brat, we have survived, so it is not entirely bad. Besides, because of him we learned that our ancient ancestors still live. Our white bat race will not fall into extinction after all. Let us return and awaken our ancestors, then have them give birth to daughters for us. Fu Yuchu's eyes shone with excitement. 2 females. No, an entire nest of females. I want to embrace them left and right. Wait a moment. Brother, we are many generations removed from our ancestors. Even if they give birth to 2 girls, by seniority, they would be our great-great-great-grandmothers. This hierarchy... Distress immediately filled the faces of the 2 white bats, and from that moment onward, they could no longer fall asleep. Within the ruins, Qinmu leaned against the broad body of the dragon Qilin to rest. More than a dozen statues of gods stood guard throughout the place, their divine radiance illuminating the entire ruin in solemn light. Qinmu still had no idea where this ruin lay within the vast expanse of the great ruins. When day came, he would need to ascend into the sky and survey the land before determining their location. Pangong So cast him a glance before sitting down as well. More than a dozen great shamans, several shaman kings, and the few surviving soldiers of barbarian Dai Empire gathered around him like shadows encircling their lord. Qinmu's gaze wandered through the ruin and fell upon many strange beasts. Among them were numerous formidable existences whose immense physiques towered over ordinary creatures. Some were even larger than the dragon Qilin in its full form. These people are somewhat interesting. His pupils contracted slightly when his gaze landed upon several groups of travelers. There were 3 distinct groups. One group consisted of 3 eminent monks. Their appearances were rugged, yet their eyes were gentle and compassionate. However, a powerful demonic aura lingered about their bodies, like a hidden storm. Monks of Little Thunderclap Monastery. The moment Qinmu sensed the demonic aura surrounding them, he recognized their origin. Little Thunderclap Monastery was a sacred land, yet it belonged to the demon race. Their leader was known as Little Rulai, a junior brother of Old Rulai himself. His cultivation was profound, and he had also reached the realm of Rulai. Little Thunderclap Monastery was also called the Little Western Paradise. It lay even farther west than the Great Thunderclap Monastery on Mount Meru, situated at the westernmost reaches of the Great Ruins. If monks of Little Thunderclap Monastery appear here, could it mean we are already in the western region of the Great Ruins? Qinmu's heart sank slightly. This was the first time he had traveled so far from familiar lands. The Great Ruins were boundless, and this place might even lie farther than Roland's Golden Palace. The second group of travelers consisted of only 2 people, a man and a woman. Both appeared very young, resembling a newly married couple. At first glance, nothing about them seemed particularly threatening. They wore garments from different tribes. The man had wrapped white cloth around his head, though his black hair remained visible atop his crown. The woman, however, was adorned in gold and silver ornaments. Numerous accessories forged from those metals and jade decorated her entire body. A black head covering bound her hair, letting it cascade forward before her slightly bulging chest. A small red flower was pinned delicately atop her head. Her hand was pale and delicate. The sleeves of her garment were short, exposing more than half of her slender arm. Though her arm was not thick, over a dozen bracelets of varying thickness, crafted from gold, silver, and jade, encircled her wrist. These two individuals stood guard beside a magnificent carriage of an unusual shape. Chin-Mu had seen many splendid carriages before, and most were square in structure. Some bore domed yurt-shaped roofs with octagonal tops. The yurt shape symbolized the square earth and round heavens, while the octagon represented the 8 directions. Both carried deep symbolic meaning and represented status. But this carriage was entirely circular. Its base was round, and its roof was round as well. Even the ornaments hanging from it bore the distinctive aura of a foreign tribe. The third group consisted of nearly 100 divine arts practitioners. Their clothing and appearance also belonged to another tribe. Every one of them possessed blue pupils, yet Chin-Mu could not determine which nation they came from. These divine arts practitioners radiated killing intent from their eyes. From time to time, they glanced toward the young couple and the strange carriage. "Cult Master, something feels wrong," the dragon Qilin whispered after secretly opening his eyes. "That woman carries far too many spirit weapons on her body, and the abilities of those divine arts practitioners are all extremely strong." Chin-Mu raised his brows slightly. The dragon Qilin's eyesight was indeed sharp. Every piece of gold, silver, and jade jewelry adorning the woman was in fact a spirit weapon. When Chin-Mu observed them through his green heaven's eyes, each spirit weapon shone with dazzling spirit rays, indicating formidable power. For someone to carry so many spirit weapons upon her body, her cultivation could certainly not be weak. Pan Gong-so had also noticed these groups. He murmured instructions to 2 great shamans beside him. One of them immediately stood and approached the young couple. After greeting them politely and inquiring about their origins, he returned and reported, "They claim to be from True Heaven Palace of West Earth. They ask whether we would assist them." "True Heaven Palace of West Earth?" Pan Gong-so said thoughtfully. "Since they are chi refiners of West Earth's True Heaven Palace, we have no relation to them and no need to guard against them. As for their problem, we will not assist." The second great shaman soon returned as well and reported, "Those divine arts practitioners are also from True Heaven Palace. They request that we do not interfere." "They are both from True Heaven Palace?" Pan Gong-so appeared surprised before smiling faintly. "It seems to be internal strife. There is no need for us to involve ourselves. As for the 3 demon monks, they are from Little Thunderclap Monastery, and our Roland's Golden Palace holds grudges with them. We must remain cautious." Roland's Golden Palace frequently captured humans and demons to cultivate their arts. Many demon monks from Little Thunderclap Monastery had been captured in the past, their souls used for cultivation. Thus, there had long been bitter clashes between the 2 factions. The 3 monks had also recognized Pan Gong-so and his followers. They exchanged glances, but refrained from making any move. Pan Gong-so lowered his voice. "Since we have encountered monks from Little Thunderclap Monastery and people from West Earth, it proves we are already in the western region of the Great Ruins. We cannot be far from Little Thunderclap Monastery. Those 3 monks cannot be allowed to live. Once the sun rises, we will eliminate them immediately." Everyone acknowledged his command. As for Cult Master Qin, his gaze turned toward Chin-Mu. At that moment, Chin-Mu was rummaging through a Tao-Ti sack. Feeling Pan Gong-so's gaze, he lifted his head and flashed a radiant smile, looking as bright and innocent as a youth beneath spring sunlight. The Tao-Ti sack in his hands belonged to Pan Gong-so. He pulled out one item after another, examining each repeatedly and playing with them curiously. What a massive hammer! He raised a huge white bone hammer and swung it gently. Instantly, countless skulls erupted from the massive skull atop the hammer, spewing soul fire in every direction. Chin-Mu shook the hammer again, and the enormous skull opened its mouth, sucking all the smaller skulls back inside. There is even a sword pellet inside. He returned the bone hammer to the touty sack and withdrew a sword pellet. With a light execution of technique, countless hair-thin swords unfurled and circled his palm. To cultivate sword arts to such a delicate realm, your skill is truly profound. Is this the refining method of Dao Sec's Dao sword? It does not seem so. Qin shook his head. The Dao sword requires only one sword. Nothing more. Old brother Pan, your cultivation still falls short. No wonder your Dao sword is merely mediocre and inferior to Dao masters. Pan Gong So snorted coldly and sneered. The Taoti sack you stole contains only a fraction of the wealth I have accumulated across all my lifetimes. He lowered his voice and whispered instructions to the shamans beside him. Tomorrow morning, you shaman kings will first deal with the 2 white bats and that fat cat. The rest of you will join forces and eliminate the Qin brat. Meanwhile, Qin finished examining the contents of the Taoti sack. He stood up and walked toward the 3 demon monks. He clasped his hands politely. Senior brothers, the 3 demon monks who had been meditating hurriedly stood and returned the greeting. Senior brother, their robes were wide with enormous sleeves. Yet despite their size, the garments could not conceal their legs. Sharp talons and thick bird-like limbs covered in feathers were revealed beneath. Are you 3 from Little Thunderclap Monastery? Qin asked. Does Little Rulai have a disciple who is a devil ape with the religious name Kong? The 3 monks were startled before nodding. Senior brother, Rulai bestowed upon him the religious name John Kong, and he is indeed Rulai's disciple. May we ask how you know him? Qin smiled gently. I am the Heavenly Saint Cult Master. He is my sworn brother, so of course I know him. I see. The 3 monks relaxed slightly. My religious name is Ding Jue, one of them said. These are my junior brothers Ding Ji and Ding Ming. We pay our respects to Heavenly Saint Cult Master. Qin glanced toward Pan Gong So before speaking softly. That young man is the Grand Master of Roland's Golden Palace. 3 shaman kings stand beside him. 2 are in celestial being realm, and 1 is in life and death realm. The 3 monks were shocked, their faces turning pale. What should we do then? We have not yet reached celestial being realm. We cannot fight them. Qin smiled calmly. Do not worry, I am here. Tomorrow, I will lead you all out of this place. Come, let us rest over there. Relieved, the 3 monks followed him to the side of the dragon Qilin. They immediately greeted him respectfully. Senior brother. The dragon Qilin was already fast asleep and did not respond. The 3 monks were gentle by nature and did not mind. They also greeted the 2 white bats hanging from the roof. Senior brothers? The white bats clasped their fists and returned the greeting. Senior brothers. Only then did the 3 demon monks sit down once more and resume their meditation. Pan Gong So watched this scene, his face turning slightly dark as he snorted inwardly. Qin asked pleasantly, Have the 3 of you ever heard of Heavenly Saint Cult? Ding Jue shook his head. We have only traveled within the Great Ruins, so we have never heard of it. Qin was about to continue when the male divine arts practitioner guarding the carriage approached and bowed. This senior brother, Qin stood and returned the greeting before shaking his head. Please stop speaking. The divine arts practitioner asked in confusion, Senior brother, why do you say that? You are being pursued by powerful practitioners and have fled into the Great Ruins. I will not ally with you, Qin replied. They have too many people, and none of them are weak. Protecting myself alone is already troublesome. If I joined forces with you, I would merely be seeking death. Please return. The man's face showed disappointment. He returned to the carriage and whispered something softly inside. A young girl's voice came from within. Mother, does that big brother not wish to help us? Another gentle voice sighed from inside the carriage. There is not a single righteous person in the Great Ruins willing to save us mother and daughter. Qin raised his brows. Righteous person? I am certainly not one. I am the Heavenly Devil Cult Master. If I refrain from doing evil, people should already celebrate. And they still expect me to be righteous? Humph. When I was young and hot-blooded, I did perform good deeds. But now that I have grown older, the night passed slowly. Within the ruins, every person harbored different intentions. No one could tell how much time had passed when a hen dragon among the strange beasts suddenly flapped its wings. It leapt onto the roof of a broken hall and crowed toward the heavens. At once, darkness retreated. A beam of sunlight from the east pierced through the sky, striking the mountains outside the ruins and illuminating the peak in golden light. Translator, Ninetales. Editor, Dark Gem. The morning sun broke through the heavens, casting its light upon the land. Chinmu slowly rose to his feet. With an unhurried motion, he slid Carefree Sword into the sheath he had carved with his own hands the day before. Lifting his leg, he gave the dragon Chillin a light kick, rousing it from its slumber, and the two white bats stirred awake as well. The dragon Chillin struggled up from the ground, vitality gleaming within its eyes. Cult Master, today's ration? Chinmu searched through his touty sack. There were not many Scarlet Fire spirit pills remaining, yet he still distributed the full portion without hesitation. The two white bats released their grip and dropped down from the roof, landing on the ground. The three demon monks also opened their eyes. They drew out clear water and biscuits from their packs. Their biscuits were made from crushed insects. The monks of Little Thunderclap Monastery belonged to the demon race. They were not strictly vegetarian, and were not bound by as many prohibitions as the monks of Great Thunderclap Monastery. These three were bird-like strange beasts, so they still enjoyed consuming insects. For the sake of convenience when carrying them around, the insects had been crushed and pressed into biscuits. Ding Jue broke half of an insect biscuit and handed it to Chinmu, who accepted it and gave it a taste. The flavor was unexpectedly pleasant, fragrant and crisp. The herd of beasts began to move once more. The people dwelling among the ruins also started to follow the flow of the herd, each of them vigilant and alert. Only Chinmu appeared somewhat distracted. This region lay close to the western borders of the Great Ruins, and he deeply wished to witness the place where the darkness receded. Since the darkness of the Great Ruins poured in from the west, that direction must be the origin. If Chinmu could discover it, he might be able to uncover the source of the calamity that had befallen the Great Ruins. The beasts walked out from the ruined city. Chinmu turned his head to glance back. He saw the carriage approaching as well, yet the woman with the little red flower and the man with the white cloth wrapped around his head were no longer visible. In their place were two deer covered in plum blossom spots, pulling the carriage. A white cloth was wrapped around the buck's horns, while the ears of the doe were tied with black cloth. Gold and silver chains and pendants hung before its chest. Upon its head was a small red flower, and more than a dozen bracelets of gold, silver, and jade adorned its two front legs. So they are demons. Chinmu blinked his eyes. Yesterday, he had not noticed that the married couple were actually strange beasts. There had been no trace of demonic aura about them, so he had never imagined they were two deer that had cultivated to the point of transforming into human form. Such a technique is truly extraordinary. It must be an orthodox cultivation art. Could they be guests from West Earth? Chinmu pondered inwardly. When Chinmu looked further behind them, he saw the 100 divine arts practitioners silently following the carriage. A small head with two braids suddenly poked out from the carriage window and glanced back. Two delicate hands quickly pulled the head inside again, and the window was shut. Chinmu withdrew his gaze. Sitting atop the dragon Chillin's back, Carefree Sword rested ready to leap from its sheath at any moment, while the flying swords inside his touty sack slowly stirred. The two white bats silently took flight and glided through the herd. Meanwhile, the robes of the three demon monks fluttered in the wind as each touch of their talons upon the ground carried them a great distance forward. Pangong So's gaze flickered as he surveyed the surroundings. Within the herd, there were no shortage of abnormally powerful strange beasts. Strange beasts themselves followed certain rules. So if they attacked now and agitated the herd, they would likely be besieged by everyone. After some time, the herd gradually began to disperse. At that moment, the two deer pulling the carriage suddenly burst into a sprint, dragging the carriage away at astonishing speed. Behind them, the 100 divine arts practitioners immediately accelerated in pursuit. Naikui, stop running. Naikui, in the Hmong language, means princess mother. Vital ki surged forth from the carriage. In an instant, Countless grasses and trees began to grow wildly, stretching longer and thicker. A forest covering an entire hectare seemed to awaken with life. Ancient trees instantly uprooted themselves from the earth, transforming into towering walking giants. As their roots lifted and struck the ground, the earth trembled violently. Their trunks twisted and morphed into massive fists that blasted every pursuer away. The trees of the great ruins were already enormous. Most were dozens of yards tall, yet there were also those as lofty as mountains. Under the woman's wondrous divine art, these trees became even more gigantic and possessed boundless strength. The vines of the forest transformed into demonic serpents, coiling around the divine arts practitioners like venomous snakes, strangling them to death. Chinmu's eyelids twitched repeatedly at the sight. Such a divine art was rarely seen and bore slight resemblance to Earth Aeon creation technique, yet it was even more domineering. The earth shook and the mountains quaked as the tree giants rampaged wildly. However, the divine arts practitioners from the different tribe reacted swiftly and executed their own divine arts. Shrill cries erupted from the gigantic trees and vines. White lights resembling spirits yet not spirits, souls yet not souls, flew out from the flora. The tree giants collapsed, and the green vines shriveled and withered. One divine arts practitioner waved his hand, and a mountain began to tremble and rumble. Countless rocks tumbled down in all directions, and the mountain itself transformed into a colossal giant that swung its massive fist toward the carriage. The doe before the carriage raised both hooves. The gold and silver bracelets upon them flew outward, binding the mountain giant's fist and crushing it. The giant's other fist smashed down toward them, and the dew let out a low grunt. She stomped her hooves upon the earth. Countless blades of green grass burst forth and grew madly. They were like swords, stabbing into the gaps between the rocks that formed the mountain giant's body. They rooted themselves within its frame and sprouted, causing the giant to crumble apart instantly. The two deer then accelerated once more, dragging the carriage swiftly away. What divine art is this? Chinmu was astonished beyond measure. These people seemed to be borrowing the might of heaven and earth itself, strengthening the forces of nature and transforming them into divine arts. This method differed from the techniques of Eternal Peace Empire and the surrounding nations. It's the divine arts of West Earth's true heaven palace, the dragon Chillin said in a deep, muffled voice. I once traveled to West Earth with Patriarch. True Heaven Palace is the sacred ground there. Their divine arts are unlike those of Middle Earth. They believe that all things possess spirit and soul, even grass, wood, and stone. In their eyes, everything has its own spirit and divine treasure. Thus their path is one where everything possesses spirit and soul. Patriarch once said they are not bad at all. All things have spirit? All things have soul? Chinmu exclaimed with admiration. The divine arts of West Earth had taken a completely different path from the rest of the world, and they were indeed worthy of study. For the young patriarch to remark that they were not bad meant that True Heaven Palace truly deserved to be called a sacred ground. Using divine arts to animate a mountain into a giant was simply astonishing. A mountain rising to life and battling like a colossal warrior was enough to shake heaven and earth. The destructive power contained within such an art was unimaginable and greatly broadened Chinmu's horizons. Its destructive power is simply too immense. Great Cult Master Chin became excited. I wonder whether there are still houses standing in West Earth. I fear they may not even have a single mountain left. If I could learn this art, tearing down mountains to make roads would be wonderfully convenient. Attack! Suddenly Pangong So issued a command, and all his subordinates sprang into action. Knife pellets filled the sky, and countless sword lights rained down upon Chinmu. At the same moment, the three shaman kings moved as well, casting shaman spells to drag the two white bats down from the heavens. Chinmu laughed loudly and raised his clothing to cover himself, vanishing in an instant. In the next moment, he appeared beside the great shamans and soldiers of the barbarian D Empire. As Carefree Sword flew forth, countless sword lights burst from his Tao-Ti sack and shot in every direction. Swoosh! 8,000 swords blanketed the ground and hovered within a radius of 300 yards. Blood dripped continuously from their blades. only 2 great shamans of the Seven Stars realm escaped unscathed. They had endured the rain of sword lights without having their hearts pierced, yet they were utterly terrified. Teleportation clothing? Pan Gong-so was astonished. Qin Mu had moved far too quickly. By relying on teleportation to arrive directly beside them, he had unleashed his killing move in an instant. With a flick of Qin Mu's finger, Carefree Sword soared upward. Countless sword lights swirled around it and slashed down toward one of the Seven Stars realm great shamans. Golden wings suddenly unfurled behind the great shaman's back and beat rapidly. Countless golden feather swords flew out and collided with the attack. Qin Mu was overwhelmed by the counterforce and blown backward. As he retreated, his clothing wrapped around him and he vanished once more. In the next instant, Qin Mu appeared behind that same great shaman. His 5 fingers opened, and Carefree Sword, along with the 8,000 swords, whistled through the air toward their target. At that moment, Pan Gong-so twisted his body and also vanished. The dragon Qilin and the 3 demon monks rushed forward. The 2 Seven Stars realm great shamans soared into the sky, only to be pursued by the 3 demon monks who transformed mid-stride into 3 golden-winged Depengs and pounced toward them. The dragon Qilin opened its mouth and roared. A pillar of blazing fire shot toward Pan Gong-so. Pan Gong-so dared not face it head-on. His figure flickered as she vanished and reappeared beside the 3 Shaman Kings. The 3 Shaman Kings were fiercely attacking the 2 white bats. Yet the bats truly possessed astonishing endurance. Even while being beaten by a Shaman King of the Life and Death realm and 2 of the Celestial Being realm, they still leapt about energetically. Their skin was truly thick. Gongmu, deal with these 2 white bats. The other Shaman Kings, kill those 3 bald donkeys. Pan Gong-so said coldly, we must eliminate them. Shaman King Gongmu was an expert of the Life and Death realm. He alone was sufficient to suppress the 2 white bats. Even if he could not beat them to death, he could at least prevent them from supporting Qin Mu. 2 Shaman Kings of the Celestial Being realm and 2 great shamans of the Seven Stars realm were more than enough to kill the 3 demon monks and the dragon Qilin, since none of the 4 had reached the Celestial Being realm yet. Just as Pan Gong-so finished speaking, he saw Qin Mu draw out a black jar from his Taoti sack. His scalp tingled as he shouted sharply, retreat quickly. He activated his teleportation spell, and his figure vanished instantly. Although his cultivation had reached the 6 Directions realm, he could not teleport very far. Only about 2,000 yards. Pan Gong-so turned to look back and saw Qin Mu smash the black jar. Dense black smoke erupted outward, spreading rapidly and covering several hundred yards in an instant. Shaman King Gongmu and the other 2 Shaman Kings hastily retreated and avoided the black smoke. Even after escaping with their lives, lingering fear remained in their hearts. The corners of Pan Gong-so's eyes twitched violently. This was the shaman poison he had refined in his previous life, possessing terrifying toxicity. If a soul or primordial spirit were contaminated, the soul would corrode and the primordial spirit would rot. Even experts of the Life and Death realm would perish within a few breaths. Qin Mu's act of smashing the jar was clearly meant to drag everyone down together. That's not right. This black smoke isn't like the shaman poison I created. Pan Gong-so's heart jolted. Although the smoke looked similar to his poison, he was a master of shaman poison. He quickly saw through the deception and realized it was merely smoke. Clearly, that rascal Qin Mu had not been idle the previous night. He must have secretly made a black jar and filled it with smoke. He possessed 2 Taoti sacks, so whatever he crafted within one of them would remain hidden from everyone. Damn it! We were tricked! Pan Gong-so's expression darkened. He wished to charge back and continue the battle. But the 2 Seven Stars realm great shamans had already been slain by the 3 demon monks, while the 2 white bats had once again crawled up energetically. He wanted to fight further, but when he saw Qin Mu calmly pulling out another black jar from his Taoti sack, hesitation filled his heart. Qin Mu laughed loudly and said clearly, Old Brother Pan, farewell? Pan Gong-so sneered and flicked his sleeves. Looking at the 3 demon monks, he suddenly called out loudly, Monk Dingming! The 3 golden-winged Depengs folded their wings and returned to their monk forms when they landed upon the ground. They had human bodies with bird talons, wearing loose Buddhist robes. Monk Dingming raised his head and answered, Here. Pangong So bowed deeply in respect. At the same time, a phantom devil appeared behind him. Standing upon a sacrificial altar, that devil also bowed. Monk Dingming cried out in astonishment. His body instantly reverted to its true form, the golden-winged Dapeng. Loud cracking sounds rang out as his 3 souls and 7 spirits shattered apart. He collapsed to the ground, dead. Chinmu felt his scalp prickle. Monk Dingming had been an expert of the 7 Stars realm, yet he had died merely from receiving a bow. This was the divine art Grandmaster had once used to kill people after learning their names, the art that made Butcher unwilling to reveal his true name. How can this be countered? As Chinmu thought of this, Pangong So, whose face had turned slightly pale, spoke again. Monk Dingji! Monk Dingji kept silent and refused to respond. Pangong So still bowed toward him. The phantom devil on the altar bowed as well. Monk Dingji gave a loud cry and instantly died an unnatural death. Blood leaked from the corner of Pangong So's mouth as he sneered. When his gaze turned toward Monk Dingjue, the monk's scalp tingled with dread, and he spread his wings to flee. Dingjue! Pangong So bowed once more. Dingjue's souls and spirits scattered midair, and the corpse of the golden-winged Dapeng plummeted from the sky. Pangong So spat out a mouthful of blood. He cast Chinmu a ruthless glance before turning away. If you had not used a false name, killing you would have been this easy. The 3 shaman kings immediately followed him, and their figures vanished into the forest.